Well, hello and welcome to Channel Agronomy Office Hours. I am Joe Gangwish, FSR with Channel here in central Nebraska. I'm going to be your moderator today, and we are coming to you live streaming from the Gothenburg Learning Center. And we're going to visit with Mark Reiman. Mark is manager of Bears at Gothenburg Learning Center here, and also Trenton Houston. Trenton is a channel technical agronomist, used to be employed here at the Learning Center, and now is a TA here in central Nebraska. So a lot of good information to relay to you. We're going to talk about some of the latest innovations in the Bayer pipeline that are being proven here. Also, how these innovations directly affect the channel portfolio, collaboration between the field team and the learning center, and a little bit about research and what that means here to farmers right now and on into the future. So you're very welcome to shoot us a question in the chat if you're on Facebook, also on YouTube, Instagram. We'll try to get them answered in real time. We've already had some advanced questions come in, gentlemen, so we're kind of excited about that. So let's just start our discussion here, Mark. You're going to be our first candidate here on the question. So give us some background on the Gothenburg Learning Center and why it was created.
Sure. So thank you, Joe. It really was created I think really got started like 2006, 2007. That we needed a place in the West where we could look at kind of research on those acres that, are different from everywhere else. We get a lot of stress out here from drought. We have a lot of different diseases that affect us more in the West. We also have, wind, hail, like all those things that really are, they're factors everywhere, but they are bigger for us in the West. So the investment was made 2007, 2008, and our first field season, where in 2008, this was just a center pivot south of Gothenburg, Nebraska. 2009 was our first field season here, laying it out into those test plots where we could start researching those topics, looking at, how drought stress impacts our portfolio of corn products and soybean products. Wheat, grain, sorghum. We've kind of looked at the gamut, and then also starting to research those factors in the West that are unique. Fertility, like I mentioned, irrigation amounts, how things resist certain diseases, particularly Goss's wilt, green snap, and then we've just kept carrying that more innovative ideas, as well as it's a place where we can, take new products, new soybean, let's say weed control traits, new corn insect traits. Pieces like that, and understand how they fit into the puzzle of what a farmer has to use out here in the West, I guess, to make their operation work.
And we've talked about this before. It was kind of I don't want to say funny, but it kind of was in a way that this place was created to look at maybe some drought situations. And when it was built, then you had a couple of rainy seasons to deal with.
Yeah, we did. I think 2009 was our first field season, as I mentioned, and then 2010. Those were two of the top 10 wettest years ever in Gothenburg. Our average is right at, and we selected this location because we're right at a little under 22 inches a year rainfall on average. I think we were 34 and 36 inches those 2 years. So like way above our average. We didn't have a lot of drought stress to show people, but farmers weren't complaining in this area about that. One thing that we did do after those first few years was to help us always show stress when visitors come to the Learning Center, and we can talk about it. We actually built a rainout shelter, which is a 160-foot long by 80-foot wide building on rails that essentially detects rainfall, and then it closes over the corn plots, and then when it's done raining, it actually opens back up. That way, we could always, be looking at drought stress. The other unique thing about that story, Joe, was the idea came out of the two wettest years, or two of the wettest years we'd ever seen at Gothenburg. We actually got it built in time for the 2012 growing season, which was the driest year, I think, since the thing. Yeah. So definitely one of those things where it seemed like Mother Nature was trying to spite a little bit what we were trying to do.
Well, the folks, around here, definitely here in Western Nebraska, remember that drought year of 2012. But talk about that, irrigation efficiency and technology. That's why this place was created, and you guys do a good job with that.
Yeah, so we have, I think we've got 7 linear irrigation systems to do plots with, and we have 5 of those with variable rate irrigation technology. And then we also have, I think something like 100 count now is 120 zones of drip irrigation that we can utilize to create different environments for corn or soybeans. So where, you know, a lot of testing might have to rely on, say, different fields and maybe very different locations to get drought stress on different products, we can kind of do it side by side. So we can set up, you know, with variable rate irrigation, you can have maybe an acre of the plot that's getting, you know, full irrigation water, or maybe it's being over irrigated. Then you can start to kind of scale that down and really get stress on it. And it really has been unique what you can find out about your products when you can, you know, you've got all those other same field conditions. Your only factor is really you're looking at that drought stress piece. So that's been really helpful in understanding, you know, and say what products in our portfolio are going to perform well in those environments that mimic a lot of what our customers have, because they have some irrigation setups where they can't apply as much water as they want to, pieces like that that really make it a great environment for doing that irrigation testing.
Well, if you're just joining us, this is Agronomy Office Hours. We're coming to you live from the Gothenburg Learning Center at Gothenburg, Nebraska. And no matter what platform you're on, put a question in the chat and we'll try to get it answered for you. So this question for both of you guys, talk about some of the research that has gone through the Learning Center here. You know, Smart Stacks Pro, VT4 Pro, Preceon corn. What do we have now currently being offered out there that's gone through the Learning Center?
Well, I mean, some of the first things, we don't see as many anymore, but drought guard hybrids was a big piece of it. Then you had your Smart Stacks, VT Double Pro, VT Triple Pro are some of those early things we looked at. And then, yeah, going into the Smart Stacks Pro, the Preceon hybrids that are a part of our technology now, Extend Flex soybeans, the original Roundup Ready to Extend soybeans. And then now, you know, we've got new technologies that we're actually researching out in the marketplace. So a lot of that from the technology piece has been really good. Can you think of any agronomic factors, Trenton, that, I mean, you remember working on projects here?
Yep. So the biggest thing for me, all that stuff you mentioned, Mark, kind of predates my time here a little bit. But on the Preceon's side of things, the thing that was the most fun to me when I was here was seeing the Preceon and the way that it kind of gets pressure tested or kind of stressed, Western stress on it, so we can really evaluate those different Preceon products or even the system as a whole and see how it'll fit for more of our Western environment to some of those key stressors that we see on the season that, you know, other areas do see, but maybe not as pronounced, such as, you know, those early July wind events with the green snap and the hail and all that. So irrigation.
Very good. We'll talk about, you know, Conventro and Viconic. You know, we're very excited about Viconic, of course, on the way, and that's gone through here too.
It is, and that's something that we're really excited about. You know, something I was going to mention before and I didn't, is the other nice thing about the Learning Center is it's kind of like the training hub for what we call the Central Plains that makes up the greater kind of Nebraska, Kansas, Eastern Colorado area. And up into the Dakotas, but kind of the training center for TAs, and we're able to come here and see some of this stuff early in our environment. So as far as the Viconic goes, before they had the name, you know, and they were an internal name, we got to see them here at the Learning Center, you know, walk through the plots, just kind of touch them, you know, see what they're all about. And that even goes one step further to say, you know, they are making local product selections based off data that comes out of this Gothenburg footprint. So that's always really exciting too, Joe.
Yeah, and then on the Conventro piece, we've been testing it here. I think we started maybe 2021, even working with it, looking at how it performs in our Western environment against our problem weeds, particularly, you know, Palmer amaranth and what it can do there. So we've been developing, you know, as a testing location for that technology, is it for about 3 to 4 years now, seeing very good, I'd say, promising results with it. And then the other thing, you know, we're a kind of testing and I'd say training hub for the Central Plains, as you mentioned, Trenton. But we also have, you know, I think we have to point out the amount of work that really goes around on throughout the state in the TD or technology development organization that the Learning Center is actually a part of. So it's not just, you know, a few acres here in Gothenburg that we're using. It really is research that's in the hands of very capable people throughout the state of Nebraska, Kansas, and even into Colorado.
Yeah. Well, thanks to Presley Bartlett. She's an FSR out here in part of Western Nebraska. She chimed in with our first question, asking us, you know, what excites us about the new Viconic soybeans? What would you guys say about that technology coming?
Yeah, the thing that excites me the most about Viconic soybeans is it's going to be our increased flexibility and really a true choice of what you want to spray, which is really nice. So just a refresher for everyone. I mean, the Viconic soybeans will be our regular glyphosate, glufosinate, dicamba, 2,4-D, and mesotrione. I think I got them all there. Tolerant soybeans. So to me, it'll be exciting that we can get back to yield and not completely focusing on chemistry and get back to the yield of beans. So
yeah,
nice.
I'd say that's the exciting part. Is just the options it opens up for farmers in the West, and really I think you mentioned the word flexibility, but the flexibility you have in the amount of different tank mixes you can utilize to control weeds. And again, you mentioned the yield piece. We are testing them really heavily in our Western environment. I think we've got, I don't know how many plots we have in the ground, but we've got quite a few plots already in the ground throughout the state and here in the Learning Center to understand yield, to understand how those new products are going to perform in tough environments. We had some early planting. We've got some dry land scenarios that we're looking at, all those pieces. So we're excited, of what that product offers. And I think we're also excited about the amount of data that we're going to have on it in the West and how we can, use that data to make those recommendations where it is getting back to yield for the farmers.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff. So let's talk about, all the technology that's we talked about has gone through the Learning Center. Talk about how all that connects eventually into Channel, into our pipeline, and how fast does that transition take place? I mean, there's a lot of research done here. So how fast can it hit the Channel pipeline when you guys start looking at it, do you think?
So, I mean, there's a lot of processes in place, but if it's like a new trait product, you might see it maybe 5 or 6 years before it actually makes it into a channel bag of seed. So you've got a lot of years of research behind it, and there's years before that. We're not certainly the first step here in Gothenburg at looking at new products for the West or new trait products, but yeah, I would say it could be 5 to 6 years before you'd see it in the marketplace. I think even something like Preceon hybrids, I think we started working with them in 2013, so we're at about 8 years now, and we have some in the marketplace now, but it is like that 5 to 6 year window, and we can use that. I mean, we always want it to be shorter, but we can use that time to our advantage to understand products better, do all those agronomic tests and see how they're going to perform here in the West for us.
Yeah. Let's talk about Trenton. I'll focus this one on you. You had the different classrooms, coming over from regional brands. We were able to see the products here. And now that we're into the new Channel brand, you've got a Channel classroom, and you're probably familiar with that. How do you help, focus on the agronomics and get people trained up through that kind of scenario? Yeah,
so the classroom here at the Learning Center is really neat because we can see a majority of our hybrid lineup all in one area. You get kind of a short little snippet of each hybrid, usually 2 rows. And we can really walk through, whether it's with the sales team or seeds pros or anyone, and kind of walk through the key differences on those hybrids and what they bring to the table for us, really comparing them where, hey, maybe this one's a little bit better on GOS, but this one brings a little bit more yield to the table. And how do we use those appropriately in different scenarios? And that goes back to really driving better decisions in our seed pros to help our growers out. So that's kind of really the most exciting thing, Joe, with the classroom, is kind of fine tuning what we see in this part of the world and getting that message out to everyone we work with.
Yeah, that's excellent. This is a Channel Agronomy Office Hours. Of course, we're coming to you live, streaming live from the Gothenburg Learning Center. Just a beautiful day out here. So glad to be joining everyone here on the live stream. No matter what platform you're on, hit us up on the chat. We'll try to get your question answered here this morning as we visit with Trenton and Mark. And guys, talk about some of the things we're dealing with here in the West that you guys have been focusing on. I know we've had crown goss has certainly been a problem. That was one of the things you guys have focused on since the beginning. So what are some of these pressure tests that you guys have been focusing on?
I would say, yeah, crown rot is one of the newer ones. So there's a lot of research here looking at, of course, the product lineup and how it performs in an environment with a lot of crown rot. Do you see a lot of it, or is it something that you really don't have to worry about it in? The other piece we can look at is, those management factors. We have the acres to look at, are there in-furrow products that help with crown rot? I wish I could say there was like an easy answer where you just do this one thing and you don't have to worry about it. But we are learning a lot about, in particular, that disease. You mentioned Goss's wilt. We've had a screening program here where we can, with our testing group, do a lot of inoculated trials. So you get a really great base of information on if something in that channel guide says, it's rated a 3 on Goss, it's rated a 4. That's a really stable, a really good rating because we've got our inoculation tests to back it up. The other agronomic piece, that we've got in our back pocket here, of course, we wish we didn't, but it's green snap. That's one that's a really big challenge. We've always got those. I think you mentioned early July. That's like the big time frame, Trenton. Those early seems like 10th of July for me. 10th of July is the day. That's like the day.
That's right.
Your corn's getting about ready to pollinate. To got that tassel up there, and so we do a lot of work with green snap to get better information around our green snap. We actually bring, for artificial green snap. We've got the natural process, but we've also got a helicopter we bring in to generate wind, and we can look at how our products perform in those environments. I guess anything I missed there, Trenton, on Western problems?
Yeah, no, those are the big ones, that's for sure. But kind of, I guess what I want to hit home there on is that, at least on the TA standpoint, that we always really appreciated are the inoculated Goss trials. To see the whole lineup that we're using in Nebraska under inoculated environment, and how if every product was in the same environment, how bad is that Goss infection, or how is the plant able to at least defend that off up at some point? So that's actually one of my favorite things to come here and do is when we get the invite to come rate the Goss's trials. And then, as Joe mentioned before, is more recently the crown rot issues that we've been seeing. And I think a lot of times the focus has gone right to hybrid selection or products, but Mark really hit it on the head there, where the other work that they're doing and the TD group is doing across the state are other management practices, whether that's cultural or anything to do with management, that we can really try to break up what we're seeing with some of the crown rot issues.
Yeah, and I don't want to even, I guess, leave out, the irrigation, the drought tolerance piece of it. We do have acres dedicated to dry land management of our products as well. So that's another thing that, everywhere gets drought stressed. Everyone talks about it, but I have been in a room of farmers, like, let's say from the eastern states before, and I grew up in northern Nebraska, and I'll ask a question like, what do you think my dad's farm average yield was in 2002? That's a year that's kind of burned in my mind as another one of those drought years. And you'll throw that out there to a room of people from, let's say, farmers from Illinois, Iowa, and they'll be like 150 bushels an acre, 130 bushels an acre. And I'll say, no, it was 8 bushels an acre. So it really is there's talk about drought this year, but it really is a thing that's kind of near and dear to me, understanding how our products perform in drought stressed environments. And that's something that I think we do well at the Learning Center. We do well at the West. And it is one of those, I think it can apply to anywhere in the nation, but it really is a big factor for us out here. And we've seen tremendous improvements, you know, from like in the past 20 years since I've been a part of, you know, like the corn business. We've seen tremendous improvements in what we can do as far as drought tolerance. I would argue with anyone about that.
And I'd like to add on to that too. What Mark was saying is the thing I really appreciate is the drought tolerance work they do here at the Learning Center is, especially with the rainout shelter, and then some of them where Mark was talking earlier with the irrigation zones where he can only say, you know, we're going to water this at R1 and then taper off, you know, through we get to black layer, or we're going to put more water on up front. That's all really important stuff to us, especially in my shoes, where if a guy is wanting to know, well, you know, this is my water allocation this year, how should I spend it? Well, Mark and the Learning Center, they have multiple years of data on this, and I can pull up the research report and show them, you know, like it's probably better to wait and spend your water, just survive up till you can until R1 and then start using your water. So I think that's really, really important for us out here too, is having the local data to push that. And of course, the university is very good at that, but it's also nice to have your internal data with internal hybrids. So.
And I've heard people outside of Bayer say, you know, our drought tolerance on corn has gotten so much better the last 10 years. And that's a testament to the research that you guys have done here.
Yeah, and I think the work that our breeding groups did, I think one thing that I thought in my mind when I wanted to highlight drought stress on this call was you think about when you go out into a cornfield that's under drought stress, or you go out into a cornfield now at pollination. And it used to be there was maybe a 2 or 3 day window where you started to shed pollen, and you had silks out there. But you were shedding pollen before you had silks. They call it the anthesis silking interval. Today, you go out and look at our products, and I think it's, you know, I don't know if necessarily it's been intentional in breeding or not, but I think it leads to greater drought tolerances. You go out there today, and you've got silks that are starting to come out there before you're really starting pollen shed. So we've really matched up when we silk to when we shed pollen. And we don't have near as many problems where we're missing pollination or things like that on hybrids. I mean, I say the VT growth stage almost doesn't exist anymore, because R1's defined as where you go in, we got silks, and we've got silks before we've really got pollen shed, or even that tassel might be fully exposed.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So let's talk a little bit about channel on the plains, some of the maturity groups maybe that you deal with here at the Learning Center, both with corn and beans, for people that are maybe watching this outside of you know, Nebraska, that want to know a little bit more about Nebraska maturity groups. Maybe what are you dealing with here?
As far as maturity groups go, it's the whole seed guide. It really it's like 98 day. So starting in the panhandle, anything as early as 98 day, and I don't work out that way, but it could be even earlier than that. But I'll just start at 98 day all the way up to we get in the Platte Valley, and you head all the way east and up to as full as maturity we have. So 118 day on the corn side. So really the whole gamut of maturities. And then on the soybean side, I guess I work with a core group, but across the state is probably safe to say like a 1.8 or a 1.9 all the way up to we'll get up into a 3.8 or a 4 southeast Nebraska. So
yeah, I grew up like 4 miles from South Dakota. It's a lot of 2.0 to 2.4 beans, just like you said. Down to the south, we can play with those 3/4. I was gonna say, we do have there is a channel hybrid that's a 69 day that's in your catalog. We are planting that here at the Learning Center as part of our planting date study. Just kind of see, you know, what that timeline looks like as far as hybrid progression here in Nebraska. But we planted it starting March 18th. It's already up out there. I think it's about V2, and we'll see when it finishes up. It's pretty interesting to be that short a hybrid. That's not something we'd recommend. But
that'll be right.
We are playing
with
4th
of July, right?
Yeah, 4th of July we'll be able to pick corn.
That's pretty short. Well, let's talk about first of all, and Trent. Let me ask you this question: how did the Learning Center prepare you to be a TA?
Yeah, it's a good question. The Learning Center was, instrumental in helping me, I guess, not only understanding how Bayer works as a company in the pipeline, but I guess really understanding what's exactly important to growers and to seed pros across the state. I'm not originally from Nebraska, so the area I came from, the problems are a lot different than what they are here in Nebraska. And even though I went to school in Nebraska, you have a good idea. But it really prepared me for the challenges they have on the plains, what's been done in the past to help with those challenges, and kind of what's on the forefront of helping combat what it might look like in the future.
Talk about the Learning Center here as a resource for local farmers, because every time we're here, you're always asking us to, please invite local farmers, because this is a resource for them, and we want to invite as many farmers to see the places as we can.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, kind of how we focus our research, or what we want to do is try to come up with unique ideas, try to listen to them, try to listen to what you guys bring back from your customers around what's going to be valuable to learn on their farm. We kind of always joke that we can take those risks, or we can lose those dollars on treatments that, the low fertility, the zero nitrogens, the things where we go out and hail damage the stuff. But as a farmer, you don't have to spend those dollars on it. So we try to provide that information and try to improve, I would say, what's going on your farm. And I don't think there's a way you can directly say, well, that farmer did. I mean, sometimes they've changed practices because of what they've seen here, but I think a lot of the things that you get is they just start to you start to open up maybe some ideas. Some of the things we've done, and Trenton's helped with it quite a bit, or did when he was here, was we keep planting soybeans a little bit earlier, seeing what happens in those environments. And I think that's a trend. We saw the report come out yesterday on planting progress. Soybeans are so far away ahead of where they ever used to be, and I think that's some of that's come out of there's been a lot of university research, there's been a lot of research we've done, there's been a lot of seed company research showing that's an option now. But we really want to be that place where if a local farmer has a question or something they want researched, we can try to fit it in. Everything from, we've got things where we're looking at, cover crop termination timing. That's something that's a little bit newer in terms of our Western environment. And we may be quite a bit different than the East because of dry conditions. So we want to do that research for them.
Well, talk more about that. Maybe this question for both of you as well. A little bit of that research and collaboration with Bayer Channel and some of the universities too that want to maybe partner with you on some research.
So we try to, find those avenues. If let's say a researcher at a university wants to understand more, I think we're working on crown rot. If they want a place where they can maybe do some of that work, get some of those samples of disease, we certainly are always open to collaborating that way. But we've also got larger projects looking at, how has corn changed maybe over the last 40 years in terms of its nitrogen use, in terms of how it performs in drought stressed environments. We've got work there. And then also looking at, those cover crops and no-till pieces. Those are some that we have. And then another one of them is UNL has a program where they encourage farmers to make decisions on their field. And you can talk about TAPS, Trenton. You know all about it.
Yeah, I do. So TAPS is a really neat program that University of Nebraska does, and really helps guys. They can play around, I guess would be the best term, with different management practices. And Learning Center has been a key part of that too. They've done it and had a team, but where you can mess around with, I want to irrigate now. This brings the economics into it, but also the end goal of yield and fertility management.
And I can tell you, we are actually hosting some of their plots this year, so we're giving that a shot. But yeah, so Trenton used to manage it, but he didn't manage it here at Gothenburg. So
yeah, and that's usually was done at one of the university research sites at North Platte, right?
Yeah.
So you've got
but with some of our irrigation stuff, we have the capability we're going to give it a shot for sure.
Yeah.
It's gonna.
Oh,
I think
very
it's going to
good.
work really well.
That's a neat contest that the University of Nebraska out here hosts. So if you want some more information on that, you can always contact us here at the Learning Center. We're streaming live from the Gothenburg Learning Center, Gothenburg, Nebraska. Trenton Houston, TA for Channel, is with us. Also, Mark Reiman. He is the director here at the Gothenburg Learning Center. So, if you got a chat question for us, just whatever platform you're on, just hit us up on the chat. We'll get your question answered. So, guys, we talked about Viconic again. That's pending applicable regulatory approval, right? So we got to mention that. But what do you guys think about the future of some of the technology? Where are we headed from here, do you think?
I think it is good to still, I think, see the investment that we have. But you do see the landscape changing a lot in terms of, it's difficult to come out with a new product. Certainly, we're working on new modes of action. We have one, we believe, in the pipeline, or at least, new products. But they are going to keep requiring, I think, continued, I'd say, really, it's using excellent management practices. It's really dialing in what your weed management strategy is, being maybe a lot more careful than we have been in the past. And then there are options that are entering the marketplace, with technology where, you've seen a lot of it, but, we've got that targeted weed management piece where we've tested things like, using a UAV to take a picture of the field, spot those weeds, and use that targeted weed control where we can use products that really deal with a specific species or something like that in certain areas of the field, but you don't have to apply it to all of it. So I think what we're really going to is more that targeted approach, probably from the chemistry we use all the way up to the technology that we use to apply it. I don't know, would you have anything to add?
Very well said. Very well said.
What about the technology, that we've started to see now, some of the technology where the sprayer sees the weed and sprays it? I mean, don't you see that getting more and more defined, and that kind of technology coming our way?
Yeah, I think it does. I've definitely gotten more questions about it the last few years on just kind of what my opinion is on it. I've worked with it a little bit before in the past when it wasn't yet commercial, in a previous job I had. Really, really neat stuff. Like everything new, there's some kinks to work out, and definitely on the herbicide side of things of kind of your application technology. I won't get into the weeds too much there, but really your nozzle selection, your volume, your rate, how that all applies when you're just doing a single quick little dose, and what that means for long-term down the road resistance. But that's a whole different story in its own. But yeah, it's rapidly evolving. It's here, and I don't know, to me, it's really surprising how quick it is being adapted. I kind of thought maybe it'd be a slower deal, but the more I'm hearing about it this year, I'm surprised. So
yeah. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about some of the local research that the TDRs do. We were here prepping for this last week, and the TDRs were running around and doing what they do. And I know if you're involved out in the field like we are with Channel, you've run into a TDR or two in some of your travels. So, Mark, explain what a TDR is and what they use the site for.
So a TDR is a technology development representative, and they use our site, and they use, sites through Nebraska that get into that local research that's really local and in your backyard. They do a lot of work that deals with, launching a new product, like Conventra that's, pending those regulatory approvals, Viconic soybeans, Preceon products, and, the new insect tolerance traits for like corn rootworm. They're key components or parts of that research throughout the state of Nebraska. And they can use our facility to, do some of that research work that they get to launch those products. The other thing that they're doing is they're looking at that regional work that really benefits growers in the Central Plains. They're doing work. We talked about crown rot. They've done work on, soybean planting date, fungicide performance, all of those pieces. They're listening to, what our regional needs are, and they're implementing that research in our local environments. So it's a really key part of kind of what we do from a research approach to fit the needs of our customers.
Yeah, they've done a great job out there. So big plug going out to our local TDRs who travel around the territory for us. So talk a little bit more about cover crops. I mean, that technology has really taken off here in the last 20 years, especially in the plains. So what do both of you on cover crops?
What are yours, Trent? I have my opinions.
I guess I'll leave my opinion out of it, and I'll stick to what
Stick to the facts.
yeah. Well, we'll stick to the work that's been done here, because I've increasingly every year I get more questions about termination timing, what product to use to kill off the cover crop. Can I do this? Can I get away with this? And some of those harder to answer questions. And a lot of the work, especially for product and rate, some of that work's been done here in Gothenburg, as well as, if my rye is 8 inches tall, what can I expect? When should I be able to plant corn into that, or beans? But the favorite one, and I've actually used the research article quite a bit the last 2 months, are for guys having questions about, how long do I need to terminate my cover crop before I plant corn or beans? And Gothenburg has real data for us from this area with our practices like strip till, where that kind of changes it up a little bit compared to if you're other places where you're trying to go no till into that or something. So that's really important.
Yeah, and that is a big piece. I mean, I like cover crops, love them from the, erosion, the wind erosion, those standpoints, what we see in the West. Our big challenge is, and what I see out there, if you're in a dryland environment, it's definitely something where, we know we've got to terminate those earlier, probably more on like the 3 weeks ahead of planting. And then you can still run into scenarios where I think seeing it this year, you don't have enough rain, then, that cover crop's taking some of the moisture out to grow. Now, if you get the rain, serve more moisture with the cover crop, but it's a little bit of I'd say different ball game out here. But I really like them from the erosion benefits, the just having living roots in the soil, holding that soil in place, keeping those nutrients where they are, rather than letting, like, we don't have a lot of nitrogen leaching, but letting, nutrients leach away. All those pieces, they can really be a benefit, but management as we move west is more critical with them. Water
in the name, right?
Yeah, water is not, water is definitely always our concern, and how we're gonna manage that cover crop so it has a positive effect, the positive effect we want for our cash crop in the future, versus maybe not having to worry about it as much, where you get more rainfall and stuff. It's a little bit bigger challenge, but I think they've got benefits.
Yeah, well, that's very good. If you have a question for us, make sure you hit us up in the chat and any of the platforms that you're on. And Brandon has a question for us coming in on Facebook. This question is for you, Trenton, so be prepared for this one. What are you seeing out there for early planted corn and soybeans, and are these temperatures, what are these temperatures we're seeing now? What are they doing on these early planted crops?
Yeah, so I'll speak real general to this, because I know it's different for different parts of the state, but central, kind of probably favoring south central Nebraska a little bit more, the area I cover. I haven't seen any big issues yet, which is nice. I think we got pretty lucky there a couple times with some of that rain we had, and then some overnight lows where, we just didn't quite get cold enough to see any emissional chilling or cold chilling injury from that, which was really nice. I was kind of worried about that there for a few nights. But really what it's going down to, we've both Joe and Mark here have mentioned, potential drought conditions here in our area this year. And we're kind of already feeling that this spring. That's where my biggest concern is right now, that I've been running into. And even the handful of fields I snuck into yesterday was our rains have been variable enough that, your moisture is variable across the field. I guess the field I was walking yesterday, some areas the corn, I mean, it was a 1/4 inch below the ground. It'll probably be up here in the next day, 2 days. There's others where the radicals just starting to come out, and that was all due to the soil moisture conditions not being uniform across the field because we're just a little bit dry this spring. Haven't caught all the rains that were promised to us, if I can even use that term right. And then it's just been so variable. That's probably the biggest thing, is the variability. There has been probably not a ton, but I would say enough of it going on is guys are starting to water stuff up, especially on the corn. I had a phone call this morning where a guy was wanting to know, I think my dryland corners are coming up quicker than the stuff that I watered after I planted. And that's probably that cold well water coming out. And then we had some cold nights right after he did that. So it just slowed it up a little bit. So I don't want to get too long-winded there, but it's a little too early to tell. We did get started planting probably a little bit earlier. Our pace is ahead of schedule probably, but just a little too early to tell yet.
And I think in this area, we've had a lot of farmers target kind of that April 25th time frame, and that's what they've been shooting for. So right here in Gothenburg, we've got a few farmers out planting now. This week it's really getting started, and we're getting really started. But so far, outside of the moisture piece where it's been a challenge, the temperature's been okay for us. I think the emergence looks pretty good, except from the moisture standpoint.
Just speaking variability wise, I've had an area that was only like probably a county width apart, and they can't even get the planters in the ground because the dry land ground is so hard and dry. And I helped put in a dry land plot the other day, like a garden. It was beautiful. So just a lot of variability out there this year.
I was part of one of those dry land plots where it was hard as a rock, even though it was dry land and no-till. It was just incredible to see that this year. But, guys, a lot of soybeans got planted early around the country, and especially here in Nebraska. Have you had any guys call you concerned that, hey, did I get my beans in too early this year?
I have not had any questions like that so far. I don't have a ton of beans in my territory, but the beans that I do have, they'll be up this week too. I looked at one field yesterday and coming strong. We haven't had any rain with the heat, so we don't have any crusting issues so far, knock on wood. But they're coming.
Yeah, and I would say the one thing, if you were experimenting maybe with some really early planted soybeans this year, that concerns me a little is I'd say, I don't know, last year didn't really happen, but we've had some pretty late freezes. Like I think like the 10th of May, like Mother's Day, it seems like in 2021, 2022. Mm-hmm. And if we've got those good conditions early, your beans will get up and out of the ground. And then if you have a really hard freeze, they're going to be vulnerable. So in those prior years, the really early planted beans, it was cool enough they didn't come up right away. This year, there's some vulnerability we haven't always seen the past few years.
Yeah. And for the folks that did get some precip out there, I mean, it's a great testament to seed treatment, right? With the beans going in early like that.
Yeah, we've got, I was looking at them just yesterday. I've got some pictures, the treated versus the non-treated, having a fungicide, insecticide seed treatment on the beans compared to the non-treated ones. It's night and day. Like the treated beans are out of the ground looking good. The non-treated beans that we planted really early, a lot of beans that rotted in the ground, things like that you're seeing out there. So it's, that has made a difference in how early we can plant beans and be successful.
Mm-hmm. All right. Oh, this is your last chance to maybe get a question in on the chat for us here as we begin to wrap things up. So let me just throw this last question out to both of you. One last chance to plug the Learning Center and what you've got going here. So Mark, let's start with you. What do you want folks to know about the Learning Center?
I guess I want them to know that I'd say we're their place. If they've got agronomic questions or things they want to learn about, our doors are always open. We welcome groups throughout the summertime. I mean, we've got everything from the planting date stuff we talked about to the cover crop termination to interseeding cover crops, inoculated Goss's wilt, crown rod areas, high yield plots, really anything you'd want to see. I think agronomists And we're really here where we want you to come out, take a look at it, ask questions, look at those new products like Viconic, maybe Conventra, those pieces that, you know, they're a little bit, few years off yet in the regulatory process, but come take a look at them, see them with your own eyes, and ask us all the questions you want.
Trenton, what would you say?
My big thing, and we haven't hit on it yet, I've been kind of surprised, but the research book that the Learning Center comes out with every year, that's a wealth of knowledge in there. And to me, the good part about it, if you're any data-driven type person, that's more than 1 year of data. They repeat trials, and they'll have 2-3 years of data in one trial summary. So that's really nice to see if it's something that's kind of on the verge, you know. So I'd like to put a plug in for that, because there's the wealth of information in that book. And Mark, we can go to, you can Google Gothenburg Learning Center training book. I think just look and it'll come up right away.
So I think the Central Plains Research Guide or something like that. Research book. You can find that.
That's great. Well, thank you both for being with us here on the Channel Agronomy Office Hours, streaming live from the Gothenburg Learning Center. Mark Reiman has been with us, manager of Bears Gothenburg Learning Center, and also Trenton Houston. Trenton is a channel technical agronomist here in Nebraska that got his start here at the Learning Center. So thank you to these gentlemen for being with us and answering some of the questions today. Thank you for the chat questions. If you sent them in to us, please reach out to your local Channel Seed Pro or your local TA with any questions. They are here and happy to help you navigate the challenges throughout the growing season and find the right product for your unique fields out there. And we encourage folks to be on the lookout for details on next month's Channel Agronomy Office Hours on social media. So we'll do another one of these next month. So be looking for the details on that. And we just want to say thank you again for joining us today. I'm Joe Gangwish, FSR here in Nebraska for Channel. We'll see